So this conversation is about our women truly from Venus. So I have some amazing speakers lined up here. So this conversation is not about are men and women different or men and women same or what are the differences between them. No, not that. This is about we already heard it many times. If men are from Mars and women are from Venus, so does women truly exist in Venus? Well, let me give my introduction. I am Swati, and I am very much committed to develop women workforce in the organizations. I believe in gender equality, and I am managing a portal which is predominantly deals with women workforce and underrepresented minorities called She Jobs. Let me introduce our amazing speakers here. Uh, Let me start with Uma. Uma is a great leadership coach, a personality development coach. She started Inside Diverse Mind, which deals with young minds and inculcate leadership skills in them. And she also runs TEDx Youth and TEDx South Lake Saloon, and where we discuss various topics. Welcome, Uma.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I also have Krupali. She is an awesome mother and a women champion. She helps women and people a lot along with her career, which she's pursuing with Wells Fargo. And she's the director in there, where she believes in women helping women. So let's hear to her thoughts now. Welcome, Krupali.
Thank you, Swati.
Hi. Hi, Anita. Welcome to the CPAL Connect. Anita is an ICF certified coach, and she actually, along with her information technology career, she started changing people's way of thinking through her coaching and leadership, developing leadership skills within other women uh, uh, and she has done various activities in her coaching and uh, where she has like various degrees in from various sources as such. I'm basically I think I joined pretty much last minute, so maybe if I'm not giving you good introduction, please excuse me.
Oh, rather.
So now I think we have to have Milena here. So just wanted to, is Milena here or? Hey, Milena, are you able to see us? Okay, so I don't think so. Milena joined. I think some technical issues, even I face same issues. So let's start with Krupali. Hi, Krupali. So do you still think men and women are from like Mars and Venus? What do you believe in this concept? What are your thought points about it?
So, thank you, Swati, for that question. Before we dive into that, I would first like to thank you and CPAL Connect and my fellow panelists for this wonderful opportunity. So, coming back to the question that you asked, I mean, this concept may be relevant in the past. What the it came around like 30 years ago, where this metaphor was used to, talk about how men and women are so different and how they function differently, how they think differently. But now, if you fast forward to present, if you really think how with all the progression, the transformation, the modernization that has happened over a period of time, I personally think that even though we men and women have some own special characteristics, but at the same time we also have a common ground. And for an example, like if you really take an example from the past, like when men used to go out and work and women used to stay home and take care of the family. But now if you look at the present, I have known many stay home dads whose roles have these roles have interchangeable, like they have changed now. Like many stay home dads take care of the family, they take care of the kids, they do everything they got to do, while women go build their careers. So I mean, over a period of time, like I said, these roles have been interchanged, like they're so if we were to be disconnected that much, I don't think this transition would have happened. So in my opinion, I think, I mean, I absolutely love the differences we have, because that brings in new perspective, new fresh outlooks, and new ideas, which would help with the innovation. And also, I really like the overlap that we have, because that gives us an opportunity to empathize us, to put us in others' shoes and think from their perspective. So to me, I think this is where I stand. Like, it's neither from Mars nor Venus, but we have a common ground.
Awesome. That is greatly said. Uma, you are an MBA graduate with various diplomas in modern applied psychology and neuroscience of mental health. So, do you also believe in this? What is your opinion on this?
So I definitely agree with Krupali. We do the concept of men are from Mars and women are from Venus is to me more of a myth than anything else. The reason why this is a myth is because, you know, while studying neuroscience, we study just brain. We don't study men's brain versus women's brain versus, just different kinds of brain, right? A brain is a brain. So coming from that perspective, we're all the same, but our opinions are different. Our preferences are different. As women, we prefer to do certain things in a certain way. Our nature and nurture makes us different, but our brains are not built for us to be different. We're all built the same way. How we utilize that energy is different. So, going back to what Kripali said, I think even though our preferences have been different, even though our nature and nurture has been different, we've been taught differently to behave differently. I think the things are coming together as we move forward, right? With the growth, the things are coming together where it's very interchangeable now, where men can do what women can do, women can do what men can do, and we are kind of coming to that space where it truly is a myth now. It's not just a myth from a science perspective, but it truly is becoming a myth even from a society perspective.
True. See, look at the pandemic. Like, is there is no difference between men and women on the activities they carry out to help others and all that stuff. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, let's come to Anita. Anita, you are a credential coach and you have a lot of experience in the coaching practice. In fact, you shifted your career from IT, to coaching executives. And just wanted to know, what were any barriers you faced as a leader? Any significant barrier?
Yeah, for me, if you equate barriers to challenges, I think we all have had challenges in our career, and not very specifically as a leader, but if I think about challenges in my career, the biggest one that I think I had is around conflicting priorities, right? So at any point, when I think back to when I started my career, my husband is a cardiologist and he needed to focus on his career. So when we met and we got married right after he was done with medical school. And so it ended up being, okay, what do I prioritize, right? Like, it's this great thing, but what do I prioritize? Do I prioritize focusing on supporting my husband or building on my career? And so I ended up prioritizing that. Fast forward a couple of years, we were very grateful to have children. So then what do you do? Do you continue to focus on your career and build your career? Or do you take time to be present with those children that you're so grateful and lucky to have, right? And so then it was a decision at that point, right? And then fast forward some more years, and now kids are in school and they're in activities and you're driving them places. And my husband is in a career where if the kids are sick, he can't necessarily cancel his patients, right? Where I can always like shift from a meeting. So balancing those home and job responsibilities ended up becoming really a huge challenge. And oftentimes I felt like I wasn't fully present at work because I was thinking about my family, and I wasn't fully present for my family because I was thinking about building my career. And so it felt like a huge challenge and a huge barrier when you have to think about those conflicting priorities. But a very close friend asked me for a quote for my birthday this past year around like what is a really important quote for me. And right now it's that challenge is nothing but an opportunity. So while that was a big challenge, and while that was something that I felt was like a barrier throughout my career, and until the children got older, and then you could focus on what you want to do. Um, I feel like it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to be there for my husband's career. It was an opportunity to be present with my children. And it was an opportunity to learn how to balance and juggle things without getting fired from my job and making sure that my family's still doing well. So I think for me, that was the biggest barrier that I felt like I had to come. And I'm very grateful to have those conflicting priorities, but it was a huge challenge to work through those. So that's what I would say there.
You know, your story is like most of the women can relate to your story, but one good thing is I see that you took that barrier as an opportunity and you became an entrepreneur. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same in my case too. So, and I know it is the same case in Uma's also. Like that she actually became an entrepreneur with her barrier. So I want to hear about Krupali. So I know, Krupali, you also might have some barriers. So how did you get through these barriers to come to where you are right now?
So, like Anita mentioned, yeah, everybody has challenges in their life. And even when I was off to start my career, like this was what, like 20 years ago, probably when I newly moved to United States, my biggest goal was to become financially independent. So that was my compelling desire to be financially independent. So, however, the place where we used to live back then, it did not have many opportunities. So I have to, weigh in like what I need to do, what it would be my course of action be at that time. So I took up MBA degree. I went to business school back then to see where I land. So I took that free time as an opportunity to go pursue higher studies. And then now once I'm done with it, like, okay, I'm done. Now where am I? Like, what should I do? What would be my next step? Now the place where we live in did not have that many great opportunities. So and then immediately my son came along. So that kind of put it was a barrier or a block right there, because now that you have a newly born, and but this compelling desire, the fire inside me that I want to work and be financially independent was still going on. But at that time, like, I had to shift my priorities a little bit in the way that, okay, now we have my son, so let's focus on him for time being and see where I land. But in the meantime, while I was trying to do that, I was also keeping up with my career goals, like, always keeping myself updated, like keeping up with the current trends, what's happening. And also I was reflecting on myself as to see what is that I want to do, what should be my career path be. MBA is a vast subject. Like, there are so many routes that you could go into. But what is that? So this whole time that I was actually, kind of laying out a path for myself. And then once my son was a little older, and with the help of family support, of course, and I had to make some challenging decisions without going into too many details, I would say that. And I challenged myself, like, I'm going to give 3 months, and I sent my son to India. 3 months is what I got. Like, this is my moment. So I had to really focus those 3 months to get my first job. And I would still never forget that day, the day when I bought my first one. But yeah, so these are all the barriers. I mean, from time to time, women, especially working women, and not only women, in fact, even men also encounter these challenges, because once they're married, they have to focus on their families. Probably their career goals may be put out on the shelf and all that. But we always need to reshift, reprioritize ourselves, and see based off on situation and make those decisions.
Awesome. You know, it's so inspiring to hear your story. Yes, financial independence is that's what like I always strive for myself and even for fellow women. I tell them like even if your husband is like having millions of dollars, but that's fine. I mean, you need to at least get $100, every month. You know, it creates so much confidence in them.
True.
This question is for Uma. Do you think there is a fact to us women being very different from men? If so, how does it impact us as leaders at workspace?
So going back to my response from your earlier question, we're not really very different in the way that we have built neurologically, but we are different in the way we have been raised, right? We are different in the way we've been told that we are different, right?
Yeah.
So that way, if you see, because of our nature and nurture, we are different. We are different in the way we perceive things and we respond to things. So, yes, we are different in how we respond and how we react too sometimes, right? We all react, we just don't only respond. So, it has helped us become better leaders. So, for example, I am very emotional as a human being, right? As a person, I'm very emotional, and there are certain things that makes me more emotional and certain things that doesn't. Anything to related to kids, anything related to health makes me emotional, and I cry. And that also makes me a vulnerable person who can understand the similar vulnerability that's coming in from another person at a different level, right? And vulnerability is the ground rule or the basics to build trust. And so that helps me work on trust with my team. That helps me build a culture of trust among the people that I am with. And I think the culture of trust is the most important for any teams, any organization, right? And that is very important for any of us. And as women, you know, we are better at conversations. And I'm not going to say men are not, but then we are told we are better. So we believe in that. And so we automatically become better, right? We believe in what we have said, what we are told we are good at. So the skill sets of being conversational, being vulnerable, the ease at which we can help build these small trust moments, right? Just a small little trust aspects within the teams. All of this makes us better leaders, and it is that uniqueness that is just a part of women that makes us better leaders.
This is what I heard, right? Yes, there is a vulnerability factor for women, and I've seen that being taken advantage by many people not to give leadership positions for women. In fact, they say that women has like menstrual times where their mood swings differ, and then their hormones will be at peak and at the menopause stage and all that. So these things are like kind of stereotyping women for not moving to leadership positions by men. uh, but of course there are some women who also stereotype us, like for us to choose like on our passion. If we take up the entrepreneur journey, there is a notion called like we have like women talking to us saying, oh, I don't know how you do this. I have my family as my priority. I can never do like this. I really don't know at that time whether to take that as a compliment or whether they are criticizing us. I'm sure we all face that, but that's not what we need to care about now. But unconsciously we might stereotype other women. So Anita, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, in terms of like a solution, right? So how do we make sure we work through those stereotypes, right? That's what you're asking, Swati?
So do you also believe women stereotype other women sometimes unconsciously, and what could be the solution for that?
Yeah, no, I think stereotyping happens generally, right? And I think you can replace that woman category with any category. I think men are stereotyped, women are stereotyped, Indians are stereotyped, people in IT are stereotyped, doctors. Like I think you can replace that with really any category, and ultimately it becomes about stereotyping that category. And I think we all do it unconsciously. Maybe some of us do it consciously, but the way to work through that, in my opinion, is really just instead of like focusing on like their group membership, whatever that group membership that we're stereotyping, it would really be to focus on the individuals based on what they say, what they do, what they believe, in place of just unthinkingly, inferring those things because of this group membership that they're from, and in this case, women, right? So when you categorize a person who you're not really giving a mind to them. You're saying, oh, all women are like this, like your PMS example or your emotional example. You're literally not even giving a mind to that individual because you're categorizing them as a group. But when you're trying to figure out what kind of human being are they, then you have to think about their mind. So I think the solution is focus on the characteristics of the individuals rather than going to their group identity. And that's how you can maneuver around segregating perceptions of these groups. And I think it's really that simple. Think of them as an individual versus the group category that you're thinking about them within. That's the shift in thinking. And I think if you can do that, that's a very simple solution to work through it.
Awesome. That's really great. Like you should not categorize like women as everybody as like one group. That's a good suggestion which you have given. And Krupali, having said that, do you think companies would benefit from having more women at the top? And what is a specific personal learning you want to share to grow up on the career?
So, undoubtedly, to answer your question in one word, with conviction, undoubtedly. So, but before we dive into understanding, like if the companies would benefit having women in leadership roles or not, first we need to understand what are the characteristics of women. What are they bringing to the table when they are getting into those leadership roles, and how in turn it is beneficial to the companies that they landed. So there are many women characteristics, but in the interest of time, I would like to pick three, the ones which I would like to highlight. One is communication. Like Anita just mentioned, we women are so like a very good communicators. Like we love to talk. Come on, we nobody can deny that. We love to talk, and this female trait is a power that a woman can use to establish these candid conversations and also engage in meaningful conversations with their coworkers, or it could be partners, or it could be anybody, that's creating a channel of open communication and making those decisions with clarity. So that's one thing. And the second thing that I really would like to highlight is diversity. Like diversity in general, we already know that it brings in new, fresh perspectives and outlooks and all that. But women being, coming from that side of the house, presents, like I said, different outlooks and, their personal, in general, women are supposed to nurture, right? Like, that's their personality, that's their trait. So that they bring into the workforce to nurture the team, to build the team, to make the team feel at home. And also on top of it, because of these new perspectives and the new outlooks that they bring in much needed innovation for the businesses. So that is the main thing. And the third most thing, which is also my favorite, is women wear multiple hats. Undoubtedly, like we women, like do multiple things. We are very good multitaskers, and there are many times men appreciatively say, like, how do you do it? Oh, you're a superwoman. Like, take Swati as a prime example. She is a superwoman. She does like multiple things at the same time. So so yeah, women do have this the trait where they balance everything, like pursuing their passions, or engaging in with their household, with their kids, everything. So they are good at dealing with stress, so they can perform well under the stressful environments, which is what these companies are all about. Like, there is so much stress that we can take it and we can you know calm everything down and manage things. So I think undoubtedly, women always can be in the top leadership roles.
Rupali, my favorite thing is innovation, though. Whatever you have said, I am continuously innovating one or other thing and failing as well. Where Uma is
There
helping.
is no failures at all. I don't believe in failures at all.
Just
There's
second.
always an opportunities and growth in those failures.
The
Exactly.
only failure is not trying, right? As long as
Yeah,
you're trying, you're
exactly.
good.
Yeah.
And talking about multiple things, I know Krupali, you're mom of two passionate tennis players, Rish and Ria. You also have an over enthusiastic dog named Cash. So I know what you do, in your free times and all that. So that's really good to hear from you. So now, uh, you know, just wanted to ask, like, as we conclude, the question is for all female leaders, right? So um, let's start with Anita here. So do you want to take few minutes to share your journey with others, like, and what would be the advice, Anita, for the future generation leaders?
Yeah, sure. So just really quick journey. I have been in technology for about 20 years. And in that time, I have really enjoyed working in that space. and I've worked in various industries. For the last 8 years, I have been working at Fidelity Investments, and I've been working in project, program, product leadership space. So that's where I've been. A few years ago, I actually completed my master's degree in executive coaching and organizational behavior, and that was pivotal, sorry, because it's through that journey that I found my passion, and I'm very, very passionate about coaching. So, in addition to working at Fidelity Investments, I also work as an executive coach at a company called Bravely. And since I've been working there, I've had the opportunity to coach over 1,500 people in all various industries. And I feel very, very, very grateful that I have found something that is really giving me a true sense of purpose, allowing me to build mastery in something, and is aligned with my passions and interests. So that's me in a nutshell as about my journey. And I would really encourage everyone to just make sure that if you can find something that's in alignment with your passion, like totally go for it. And then in terms of advice that I would give for future generational leaders, there's things that we can do as women that I feel like might give us a little bit of just support that we're looking for. So a lot of these companies, Fidelity included, they have female leadership groups. So if your company has a female leadership group, I would strongly encourage you to join that female leadership group. I feel like they offer supportive communities to explore challenges that are unique to women, right? They offer networking opportunities, and they also offer opportunities to learn trades like inspiring others and leading through modeling, etc., showing empathy, those type of things. And then, so that would be one. The second thing would be around mentorship and building advocacy. I think mentorship is vital to professional women wanting to move ahead in their careers, right? So if you find a mentor that you want to emulate, I think it can be a very beautiful thing. They'll share their experiences and perspectives that they've learned along the way. They can offer you confidence building, and they can also model successful behavior so that you have some idea of what your North Star looks like. And then finding an advocate, as you're wanting to move up in your career, you could be doing all of the right things and exceeding expectations, but sometimes, it still doesn't go where you want it to go. And you can improve your chances if you build advocacy. And honestly, the higher in the organization that you can build and find an advocate, the better. So I would strongly encourage you to see what you can do to build advocacy so that when you go to make those career moves in the direction that you want, you have that support to be able to do that through mentorship and advocacy. Also, I would really recommend that you focus on effective communication as it relates to your career advancement goals. So if you know what you want, like you want to be a VP by the time you're 40, or you want to be an SVP by whatever it is that you want, if you're clear on your goals, it becomes very important and critical that you're consistently and effectively communicating those goals to your manager and having those critical conversations. So I would encourage you to make sure that you're doing that as you're going on your journey for becoming leaders and where you want to go in your career. And finally, I do a charity event every year. And the last time I did this, I created a t-shirt. And the saying that I put on that t-shirt was, "We rise by lifting others." And if there's an opportunity for you to help somebody around you, I would really suggest you take some time to do that as well, because by you helping others, you're lifting everybody up alongside with you, and you can rise together. So that's what I have in terms of.
Very well said, Anita. I love that thing on your T-shirt, like which you mentioned. Yes, uplifting others is something which we need to take as purpose of our life. I totally agree with you. And Uma, we would like to hear your journey, and inspire us.
I don't know what inspired, but yes, I'm happy to share my journey. I started my first full-time job when I was 16. Although I started this job because of a financial necessity, it soon became my passion. And I started my journey as a teacher at an elementary school. And at that time, I didn't realize how much I really loved to teach, but over the course of time, that became a passion for me. I moved from starting my career at 16 as an elementary school teacher Two, I started teaching Hindi, an Indian language, for the elementary school teachers. I was a Hindi teacher. From there, I moved on to becoming a corporate trainer for ICICI Bank, where I was heading the national training division for ICICI in India. And I was there when I was 21. At 21, I still didn't have my graduate degree, and I was heading a whole department for training and development. Guess what? From there, I find the love of my life and I come over to US. And guess what happens? I have to restart my entire career. So whatever I built from 16 to 21, moving all the way up from an elementary school teacher to heading a whole corporate training and development division, I come over to the US, attend my very first interview, and I still remember the company that I attended an interview with. I applied for corporate training, and oh, we don't understand your accent. What are you talking? Trust me, I wasn't bad at English then. I was at least decent enough, and I was still the same. And my accent was a big problem to become a corporate trainer. And I was told, or rather stereotyped, to say, you're an Indian, you'll be great at IT. Why not try QA? Why not try your skill sets in testing? So guess what? That's what I did. So 17 years back, well, I don't know how many years, it was in 2004, September, I came over to the US, and in November, I was on my first QA job.
Wow.
So I restarted my career from where I was in India to starting again as a QA. But my passion for teaching never left me. Throughout, from QA all the way till where I am today, I today had all of digital marketing operations and the marketing finance teams for General Motors Financial. Throughout my career in the last 15, 16 years, I have continued to give back to the community in the role of a teacher. So I started by volunteering in various schools in and around here, Dallas, Fort Worth. I used to volunteer at schools to teach kids public speaking, to teach kids leadership, to teach kids everything about finance, because I came from a mutual fund and insurance background, which had a lot of financial knowledge from there. Started teaching all of this at schools, then went on to bring the very first Toastmasters Gavel Club for our community, and then went on to bring the TEDx youth platform for our community. In the last 2 years, I've trained over 150 kids, all of them in the age group of middle school and high school kids. And I'm also an executive coach with a company called Better Up, where right now I am training all of their corporate clients, not all of them, some of their corporate clients. And it's super exciting. The kind of clients that I'm trying, I really wish I can give out the names because they are big time out there, and it is giving me so much of experience. And guess what? The same corporate training that I was to client for 17 years back is what I'm doing today for the top companies here in the US. Exactly the same role. And I'm super excited with the journey that I have come along. And what I have learned through this journey was change was inevitable, right? I met the love of my life, which means I had to go through that change of coming over here. The change of me restarting my entire career into QA but this change did not have to stop me from pursuing my passion. My failures, when I was said, you can't be a corporate trainer, you only fit to be a QA. My failures was never a failure. It was a learning for me to keep moving forward, right? And I think my message for the next generation leaders, women, anybody would be change and failure are two things that you constantly have to have in life to continue to grow. And I'm just going to steal what Anita said. Communication skills are really, really important. But when it comes to communication skills, it's not about what you talk, what you say, but it's about also how you listen, deep listening, right? And I usually call this a deep listening because when you listen to people with already a preconceived thought of what am I going to respond to them? Oh, what am I going to say to them? Then you're never really learning. You're never really understanding what they're saying. So communication, the key aspect of it is deep listening, inclusive listening, understanding what this person is saying, but not really to respond, just to understand, right? That is the key. So work on developing that. Invest your time on that and invest your time to pay it forward. If
Awesome.
you're in a good position, if you are in a leadership position, be the steward for somebody else. Pay it forward, not with any expectations. You don't have to really expect anything. Just pull somebody else along with you. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Thank you.
Very nice, Uma. I love the way you always, inspire us so much and influence us in a very positive manner. And Krupali, talk to us about your journey.
Um, so before I would start my narrative, I would start with this famous quote by Anne Frank, where it says, "Everyone has inside her a piece of good news." That good news is that you don't know how great you can be. You don't know how and what you can accomplish. You don't know how much you can love, and you don't know how much what your potential is until you have unleashed that. So that quote actually resonates with me a lot. If I really have to look back my journey, I've never, like, as I was growing up, and actually, Uma, probably we kind of share a similar story as well. You started to work at the age of 16 as an elementary teacher. I did the same thing too, but probably at 18 for the financial necessity itself. So, but teaching it was out of financial necessity. Teaching was never my passion or anything. But like I said in the beginning, my goal was to be financially independent. Like that was my thing. So as I started my journey, to I was not fully aware of what I'm capable of. Like even for my first job, I didn't know like what my path is going to be. I was literally scared to even step into the corporate world, though I had that fire inside me that I want to be there. And I took this training and I started as a QA, like you just did, to see where I land. But that was not good enough for me. Like I wanted to do more. Like I want to do more and more. So then I started to explore other career options. And as you go through that process, like this quote said, that you don't know until you go onto the other side and figure out like what potential you have, what you can accomplish, and all those things. It kind of helps you get to where you want to be. So to me, I not only on the professional side, I'll try to keep it brief, not only on the professional side, on the personal side too, I really love to explore passions. I like to take risks. I like to take bold decisions. Like I wanted to go to Everest Base Camp. Like I did Everest Base Camp and I had no clue what Everest Base Camp was, but I made the decision. I want to be committed to that. I want to put in all the hard work that it needs to be it so that we can enjoy the experience. So I was committed to all these things. So to me, like if at all I have to give any advice to the next generation or to anybody for that matter, I would say like two things. One is like invest in yourself, like not only your career, like even in your passions. You just want to know where you land. You just take those right bold decisions, like take little bit risks, yet calculated risks, I would say. So to see where you see you could unleash your potential. So to me, I am a person, that's one thing. And second thing is I compete with myself. I encourage myself, I criticize myself, I celebrate myself, I motivate myself, end of the day, to meet a new version of myself every time. So that's my take.
Absolutely.
Really great. So that's so great to learn about your personal dimensions along with your career and how did you transform yourself and how did you take barriers as your opportunity. But I do have some questions coming. So Uma, the question is like if we are in a situation that we feel that we are blocked. I mean we feel that we are stuck in that situation. Like how do you self motivate and what do you do? What will be the first step to come out of that? Like yeah, one of the women is asking.
So we all will definitely inevitably find ourselves at some point in time where we are blocked. We don't know how to move forward from there, right? So find yourself a coach, find yourself a mentor, find yourself somebody that you can talk to. because most of the answers for all of us is within us. You don't have to look outside. However, when you can talk to somebody, you just understand how to move forward from there, right? But do not just stop yourself there. Keep trying. Even when you try, you fail, that's fine. Keep trying again. Remember when I was telling you the last time, change and failure are inevitable for growth.
Yeah.
You fear from that, you're not going to grow. And when you feel like you have a block and you can't move forward, we all need a coach at some point of time in our life, right? We all need a coach. We all need somebody that we can talk to on a constant basis to just run our thoughts by, right? Find yourself that person, invest. I mean, that's an investment. And I agree, it is sometimes a larger investment. If you want to hire people like Anita, that's an expensive investment. Just kidding. She's an expert. But it's the worth investment, right? Because coaches, mentors, these are the people who's looking at and hearing to these things on a constant basis, on a daily basis, so they can help you guide through these situations.
Awesome. So we are just coming to end of the conversation. Quickly, Anita, do you think branding is important for women in the middle of a career, like in middle positions, to move on to the leadership positions?
Yeah, I think branding is important at every level of your career, frankly, because honestly, there's the perception of what we feel we are, and then there's the perception of how other people are perceiving us. So really, when you focus on brand, there's two aspects of it. One, what do we want our brand to be? And secondly, how are people perceiving that brand that we have? And your brand is what when people are thinking of opportunities, would they go with you? Would they not? So brand is very, very important. And I think it makes sense to just take a step back and think about first, what do you want your brand to be? And secondly, how do you know you're showing up in that with that brand? So those are the two areas.
Awesome. Greatly said. Yes, branding is very important. I totally agree with that. And one final question for Krupali. So people are like really they don't know where to move, and mothers especially, they don't know whether they want to go to pursue their career or should they wait. There is no right time, for them. So when do you think is the right time for them to work on their career?
Whenever you feel from inside, like I said, with my journey, the example that I gave you is there is nothing like a right time, but you have to also weigh in your options to see, like, is this the right time? Are you going to be happy? Do you have that support system? For an example, if I had my son and if I was not able to send him to a daycare, or if nobody is there to watch, you cannot leave your child and go pursue your career, right? So you need to assess these kind of situations, but at the same time, like, let not the fire in you stop. Keep up. That gives you that motivation, confidence, like, as to whenever you are ready, you're not starting from the scratch. You're already there where you can just, the moment comes, you zoom in and just go conquer.
So you're saying there is an inner voice which will tell us like when to move. Okay, that's a great answer. So to conclude this conversation with my opinion, right? So I know Venus is a bright star, one of the, beautiful stars out there, but still I don't want to be stereotyped as women are from Venus, I think, I don't know about Mars, I don't know about Venus, but I know men and women totally belong to planet Earth. That's how yeah, I want to conclude this. And it's so amazing to talk to you all. It's like we learn from ourselves like every single day, and we also learn from others on we think like problems is only for us, but no, problems are for everybody, and they found their own solutions to come out of that. So it's so amazing to learn like what kind of barriers you faced, how you came out of it, and how much self-confident are you, or look at you. And I totally believe that you're also helping other women. I know about you all, but it's so amazing to talk to you again. Bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody who is watching this.
Bye.